motion picture soundtrack of Jason's Lyric. That is a collaborative of voices that were extremely popular during the 90s R&B group heyday, including Christopher Williams and Kevon Edmonds of After Six, and Tevin Campbell and Stokely Williams, formerly of Mint Condition, now on his solo tip, and so many other voices. But it's also notable because it was the first time that we got to hear the songwriting talent of D'Angelo. And he comes in later. He does the ad libs that take the song out. But if they had listed him by name, nobody would have known who he was at this particular time of his career. It was before the establishment of his debut album and everything else. But again, from the soundtrack of Jason's Lyric, that is the collaborative that they called BMU, otherwise known as Black Men United, for a song titled You Will Know. And Mike thought I was playing y'all a gospel song. He did not recognize it immediately. This surprises me, Mike D.
What? Oh, Happy Day. What? Jason's Lyric? I don't. That's if you mentioned Jason's Lyric, the last thing I would think about was the soundtrack. I'm thinking about the unrated version. Jada Pinkett Smith, Alan Payne in that store. That's a classic scene.
I barely remember the film. I know all about the soundtrack.
Okay.
Yeah. there were other good things, very good songs on the soundtrack. It set the precedent. Now, I know that Love Jones broke the mold in terms of soundtrack sales and how that established in the industry. But the Jason's Lyric soundtrack was very good.
There is definitely an inverse proportionate ratio to a black movie soundtrack sales and its actual ticket sales generally.
Okay.
So
I didn't realize it was inverse.
Well, nobody saw Love Jones in the theater, but many people heard The Penny with a Hole in It.
Really?
It was not a success, or else it'd been Love Jones 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, but I guess I just didn't process it that way, because Lord knows I did. And like I say, Love Jones was my life. Love Jones might be the semi autobiographic pick ever created, just because of the spoken word community, because of the independent music community. Even though it was Chicago and not Philly, it was still incredibly familiar.
It's a classic movie, but it also ran Ted Wichter out of the whole movie industry.
Yeah, as we had our conversation with him and we heard, but there's so much to be said for these moments that are being created by black directors and us telling tales on the big screen that are happening right now.
Today's
and that is
March 9th.
That's where we're going to begin
happy
today.
Day. Edwin Hawkins, rest in peace.
Yes.
But happy day. We finally got to March 9th.
Yes.
Now this is the Biggie anniversary, of course. Everybody's going to talk about the rapper Biggie Smalls.
I don't do death anniversaries. Okay. I do birthdays. I don't do death anniversaries, so I don't keep those dates in my head.
Well, prior to 2018, March 9th had its own significance, but today is a day that Ava DuVernay's Wrinkle in Time is in theaters. Everybody can go see it. Everybody go pay to see it.
Yes.
And support this woman who's a big friend and fan of the show, and we've supported her since day one. So.
Absolutely. And one of the things that is really significant that I know we can talk about is that we are hoping, and we are, a lot of folks in the black community are challenging people to use the momentum that has been created by Black Panther and take it through A Wrinkle in Time. But people don't have the same oomph towards this story that they do about the whole superhero and Wakanda and everything else that Black Panther conjured up.
It doesn't have that automatic built-in audience,
right?
But this is very important film in many respects. For one, it's one of the first times a woman director, let alone a black woman, first time an African American woman director has been given $100 million budget to do anything for Hollywood, right?
Yes.
So that's super important. And then when she was given the opportunity, Ava was given the opportunity to make this film, she cast a black woman, a black girl in the lead. So this is the very first time in forever. Forget about The Wiz, because that was like a 30, 40-year-old
Diana Ross, right?
Playing a 13-year-old. Now we got a real 13-year-old girl playing a 13-year-old girl,
and her name
who's black.
Her name is Storm. How do you not support that? Like she's playing the lead actress in a fantasy movie, and her parents named her Storm. It's like she was built for this.
So we're finally in this realm where we have black creativity is within the black imagination. We're getting to see ourselves, and now, and everybody's saying like, "Hey, I wish this movie existed when I was a kid."
Yeah,
I wish I could see these images of ourselves, which falls into the Oscars as well. But
yes, but one of the things, I've been saying ever since this was announced that this book was like the top of the pyramid for me in terms of childhood literature, and maybe it's because it is dark on one level, and then it's got all this sci-fi fantasy realm that kids that are into STEM or whatever, that they'll be able to relate to. But the idea that it was cast purposefully with this little black girl doing the lead, I think is incredibly significant. And we want to, as a community, we've proven that we will show up and we will show out with Black Panther, which just hit $1 billion globally in terms of its net receipts without being open in Japan and without being open in China. Two other huge markets for that style of film. So it's going to keep pushing it. It's already in the top 10 film releases, gross receipts of all time, and it's going to keep moving.
Well, that's a job for me. Like when the Black Panther Blu-ray comes out, just to watch the whole movie in Japanese would be dope. I hope they include all the languages.
Right. So you can make this selection.
Yeah. We've hit this momentum. We hit the stride. Some say it's a synergy. Certainly, people are ready, and people are making movies and telling their stories.
Disney's making money hand over fist. Because one of the other things that people talked about was the fact that Ryan Coogler was in one suite doing editing directly across the hall from Ava DuVernay doing her editing for this film. So it is very much, and they're both Cali people. Just embracing the idea of this moment in time for these young Black directors to be in a space where they're creating these huge films. We're not talking about little indie films, and we do a lot of support of that as well. Folks who are crowdfunding for their budgets and all that. These are blockbuster films.
Well, yeah, super important. I mean, truth be told, neither of us have seen Wrinkle in Time yet. Correct?
No, they canceled the screening
in advance. So that was an act of God, or maybe just power out or something. But we didn't get a chance to see it yet. Anybody has had a chance to see it, please call in. But Reelblack is involved in Teaspoon and Pound and Black Sci-Fi.
And that's where I will be on Sunday.
Sunday morning, was it 9:30, 10 o'clock at the Riverview. And it's Derek Pitts from the Franklin Institute is going to be doing the Q&A afterwards. So it's all the STEM kids.
He's my nerd crush. He's my local nerd crush.
So you look for Stephanie in the front row.
No, really. I admit that I am firmly a nerd girl.
Okay.
And I embrace it. But astronomers, how often do you get a chance to meet astronomers who are cool? Okay.
All right. So you got the Fenty makeup on now. What's in store Sunday morning?
Sunday morning, out of my bed that early and out in public, it's going to be something very similar to this.
We're going to take pictures.
Isn't he married?
I don't know, but it's okay.
No, it's just nerd crush. I can admire from afar.
You want a good selfie, though. You always want to look good for yourself. I can't. Anyway, so yeah, it's super. So yeah, we transform time. Both movies, Black Panther, like the Afrocentricity and all kinds of layers,
cloaking devices and all kinds of stuff.
But I mean, the thing about it is, I want to get to the Oscars real quick before we go into the second. Like I shout out to Jordan Peele, of course, who won the screenplay.
Yes, best original screenplay at the Oscars,
and won best director, I believe, at the Independent Spirit Awards.
Yes.
So talent does not go unrecognized in the city, and I think the Oscars. This is the first year we've been doing the show 3 years. This is the first time, maybe because we were away, we didn't have any complaints about should we be rewarded or like the value of an Oscar or whatever. Yeah. The fact that Detroit was not nominated for anything made me very super validated.
Well, the only thing I will say about
song.
Detroit, the song. So for those of you who haven't heard, I have been on the train that when they did the announcements about all the songs that were nominated. If you have not yet heard The Roots featuring Bilal with a song titled "It Ain't Fair,"
that song is
amazing, and it should have been nominated. Even if it didn't win, it should have been nominated compared to some of the other stuff that was in there. So
yeah, we're not going to disparage, but we're going
to let it go. But I'm just saying,
Lonnie could have swapped out for the Roots. I would have been cool with
exactly. But it's a wonderful, wonderful song, and they performed it as part of a Tiny Desk concert. So for those of you who like checking out live performances, it's such a cool venue. NPR really they really capitalized on something with that. But that was the lion's share of the time that they used in their Tiny Desk concert was to perform this song live, and it's amazing.
So this was the first year where we weren't saying, well, Oscars don't matter and we don't need this to validate. We really had some people we wanted to cheer for this year.
Yeah.
And, for the most part, it got... But then, I always feel funny about the Oscars anyway, because it's like Hollywood makes a living off of putting out bad movies all year long. Like every week there's bad movie after bad movie. And literally last year, it was a bunch of terrible movies throughout the summer. Yeah, Get Out was my top movie all year, and then I had to wait almost the entire year to end before I saw anything close, which was Coco, which won. Thank you.
Yes.
But
one couple different things, but yes, I bought it. Did I tell you I bought it?
Oh, you got it already? I'm trying
people who listen to the show on a regular basis know I was struggling trying to get out to the theater to actually see Coco, and so I just went ahead and bought it on iTunes so I could sit and watch it at home.
So you got the Apple TV hooked up,
and so now I have it.
Remember me?
It's so beautifully done. One.
Oh, did you finish watching it? Okay.
I watched it. Okay. I've watched it. So
did you cry?
But yes, I did.
Thank you.
And the although it wasn't like the whole ugly cry like I have with some other movies, I cried harder in Toy Story 3 than I cried in Coco. But it was just beautiful to me, and the idea of ancestral energy and how you even navigate the idea, whether they're living or they've passed on, of ancestors who make decisions for you, thinking that it's going to protect you, or in some way, that it kind of keeps you grounded, and then you realize you have a connection that you didn't even know you had. Yeah. It's really beautiful. If you have not seen it, ladies and gentlemen, you got to go see it.
Coco, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of synergy and waves and stuff. I mean, the Oscars, it just like they. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to come off sexist or wrong or anything. I just feel like it's like hyped up a little bit too much. Like I'm happy for the idea that we're promoting this inclusion, and this whole Oscar ceremony was all about like getting back at Harvey Weinstein, and we're gonna take back the whole industry. And I'm just like,
his company has been taken.
Well,
that's a whole other conversation.
Well, look, karma's real, right?
Yeah.
But I'm just saying. I thought Jordan Peele gave the best speech over Frances McDormand. I mean, I appreciate the fact that she said everybody who was nominated, stand up. We all deserve meetings. I think that was on point. A little extra for me, but definitely required for the tone of the night to close off the night. But I like Jordan Peele's speech a little more because he actually thanked the people that bought tickets to see the movie.
Yes, he did.
I think that none of this stuff works. You can make you can have the best intentions about anything, make the best movies in the world, but I mean, 3 Billboards, how many people really saw it in the theater?
Yeah.
I mean, and how many more opportunities, if that movie or any movie like a 3 Billboards doesn't get the Oscar push and win, how many more opportunities are there going to be even for that filmmaker? So, I mean, Jordan Peele did not need to win anything. They already had his number because he made the movie for $5 million. It grossed over $100 million.
Yeah.
So that's really what talks in Hollywood, and I think that while we're in this moment, we still need to have respect for the audience. And I think from every indication, Ava DuVernay's provided the movie that we've been wanting to see for quite some time.
Yes.
And I really encourage people to go out and support it this weekend in theaters, so that the powers that be can see that we will support these movies when they're offered to us, and we're not just on the hype thing. But
absolutely,
we want to see them.
I was going to say, I know we have a caller that we'll get to in 1 second, but I want to just add to the thing that the other thing I appreciate about Jordan Peele's speech was how many times he walked away from it.
Oh, he said
he won for Best Original Screenplay because he wrote it, and he talked about the process of actually creating it. It was it was a real labor of love for him that he didn't trust anybody was going to want to make. And so because of that, he walked away from the writing process a bunch of times, and he kept getting pulled back to it by people who believed in him, that were in his circle around him, and because he was so compelled to tell the story. And that is also, I think, a lesson for all of us who are thinking about, I've got this great idea, but how am I going to see it birthed into the world? You gotta sit with it. You gotta know that this is a thing, and you gotta push towards completing it.
Yeah. Take the time away to really get into that creative space where you're making something that no one else has seen before. And I think that's ultimately, that's the other thing that Hollywood talks is like, you want originality. Like people when you sit in these offices and you pitch your ideas, like if your idea doesn't light that executive's eye up within the first 30 seconds, you can see their eyelids dim. They've heard it before. So Get Out was a perfect storm of like, here's a guy who has a story to tell, and it can be told cheaply, and Black is in right now. So let's go make these movies.
All of those things that make it happen. Let's talk to Keith before we go to commercial break. How you doing this afternoon?
Hi, pretty good. Are you there?
Yes, we're here.
Yeah, pretty good. Look, I was something you said about I want to go with the Diana Ross thing. It was so ironic that you brought that up, and with the 13-year on this new show. Remember that Diana, when she got that role in The Wiz, to play that, a younger 13-year-old, like you mentioned. But I really always felt that role should have went to Stephanie Mills. What made me think of that is that Stephanie was turned down, remember, back then because of her blackness. Right. Remember that they wanted someone to fit that scene, and they chose Diana over Stephanie. And it was just real interesting.
Without question. Well, I mean, keep in mind the movie was produced by Barry Gordy and Motown Productions. So I mean, I'm cautiously optimistic about this current wave of black film, that it'll be longer lasting. My big issue is just put the money back into your farm system. Like keep it, like, if you are so lucky to have a name, produce a young filmmaker's movie or be in a cameo, don't always go for the dollar, because that's how you get a Ryan Coogler. That's how you get an Ava DuVernay. They don't just come out of the blue. They just have to be ready for these opportunities that Hollywood was presenting. They were going to make a Black Panther movie. There were, like as Ava DuVernay says on Breakfast Club, there's a very short list of people that could actually take on $100 million budget, and are of color. But it's economics. So Diana Ross, horribly miscast, destroyed all of black film for a decade. The failure of The Wiz, but we did get Michael Jackson and Quincy Jones out of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but what's unfortunate is that I don't know if they filmed any of the Wiz Broadway, like the Stephanie Mills. There may be a film of it at the Lincoln Center, but it would have been so nice if at the same time they were doing that, somebody had taken the opportunity to film the actual production,
the stage production,
real cast.
And remember that we're also talking about part of the reason why they insisted upon Diana Ross is because they thought she was going to be able to make it a star vehicle, given the success she had with Lady Sings the Blues and what was the other, Mahogany. So they just thought that she had enough star power to carry it over into this role that she was very miscast for, and it didn't work.
Well, I don't.
Yeah, it was. Right. And I think it was a mistake, because I do like what the gentleman was just saying. I do think Stephanie would have been a better pick, and I think it would have been a better movie, and they probably would have sold more. So I think it worked against them.
Perhaps, but they wouldn't have had the budget, though. They wouldn't have spent the same money. So
but one other quick thing I want to get to too is with the Oscar thing here recently, and the Black Panther especially coming out and stuff like that, which I think is good for our community. I always go back to this, and I want to give a shout out to these two. You remember a couple years ago, Will and Jada wanted to boycott the Oscars.
Yes.
And I believe, I remember what the Oscars responded and said, we're going to do things differently. I remember they said that. And I just want to give a shout out to Will and Jada.
Well, shout out to Cheryl Boone Isaacs.
Yeah, Cheryl Boone Isaacs is the new president of the Academy.
And Tendai Kendo at Disney for financing. Don't get me started on Will and Jada, please.
Yeah, Mike has a personal festivus against them. He has grievances.
I understand that, but that's why
I don't think drawing public attention to.
I gotta give them their credit because they did that then, and I'm behind them 100%, and I see a difference.
I got you.
Okay.
I see a difference. That's all I want to say. I'm the same.
Okay.
Well, this is officially Will and Jada Pinkett Day.
I was gonna say it is all good. Keith, we appreciate you listening, and we appreciate you bringing that up. And I think that we can
fair enough. I mean, I'll give
continue
it
on that on the other side of the break. We got to take a commercial break, ladies and gentlemen. But we'll be back with more of this week's edition of Real Black Radio in just a moment. From the album Black Radio 2, that is the Robert Glasper Experiment, featuring vocals from the gentleman that has been referred to on Twitter, and it cracks me up every time, as the sharecropper balladeer, Anthony Hamilton, with Yet to Find. And that is no disrespect to our ancestors, but they're like, he just has such an old South sound.
Well, there's some current sharecroppers out there that might be their Jeep music. Yeah.
But just the idea of how we honor that kind of tie into a sound, a feeling, and how certain people just have the power to conjure that up. When you talk about documentation of the original Wiz on Broadway, that I can't not explain to you, as a little girl named Stephanie, what it meant to go see Stephanie Mills in the role of Dorothy, singing her face off and presenting that fantasy world, and what that meant to me, and how much that influenced me. So that ties back into this conversation we're having about A Wrinkle in Time, and how these portrayals of us on the large screen in all manner of heroism, how it impacts little people.
Without question. Oh, and to be fair, I think there are some clips of Stephanie Mills in an original production of The Wiz on YouTube. Okay. But it's like shot from the balcony.
Yeah, elite. And how would they have even done, now we've got these phones that they make us turn off even in screenings, or turn in completely.
Leon Isaac Kennedy, he probably had a camera in the balcony. I think he's responsible for all illegal VHS bootlegs. I'm saying I'm not implicating Leon Isaac Kennedy, but he did have a video camera.
I was going to say, if you have not seen the Unsung Hollywood episode that talks about him, there's so much to learn and to ponder.
Perhaps. Perhaps. I mean, I don't know where, but I'm
just saying that in the 70s, that would have been a feat, because any kind of camera back then was huge.
It'd be bulky, yeah. There are few. There's a Richard Pryor bootleg at Universal Amphitheater in 1981. Really? Yeah, it's like these weird. Yeah. Like they go in, like if you think the Black Panther bootleg is bad, where it's like you hear people like screaming and yelling and stuff in the background. It's clearly a 3D projection, and they're filming it off the screen anyway. Like these 81 Richard Pryor at the Universal Amphitheater bootleg is equally janky. It moves in and out. Like you see people laughing and jumping and stuff. It's kind of weird. But, but it's all we have. It's all that's left of our history.
And I was gonna say, and for Mike and I, who are deeply into the whole archival piece, it's like sometimes you just want to see that stuff just to verify that it exists.
Yes, millennial. So be appreciative that you have not only 50 Ava DuVernay interviews chronicling the making of Wrinkle in Time, but the actual film, which will be available everywhere on the planet, in the galaxy, everywhere. Because when in 1979, 80, all we had was Diana Ross pretending to be 13.
Well, yeah, and the whole idea of the 13, they made her a teacher.
They made her a school teacher, yeah.
So I was like, so she was grown. It wasn't even the same kind of dynamic.
Well,
for
and people
the character
love it.
Dorothy.
I mean, it's not to say that this is not a classic.
I love the Wiz, but I'm not saying that Diana Ross was the best casting choice.
Right.
I love the Wiz because of the music. Shout out to Charlie Smalls, who wrote the lion's share of that music, and then Quincy Jones, of course, produced the soundtrack.
Related to Charlie, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Laeta from
Laeta St. Clair.
Questlo's Supreme.
Yes.
Yeah. So just tying everything together for people. And I have my Compton hat on for those who can't see.
Yes.
In celebration of the girl from Compton. Also.
Yes, right.
But yeah, so tonight we are also like paying it forward in terms of this is a great accomplishment. Black women finally given the opportunity to show Hollywood what they can do with $100 million. Now we're celebrating tonight at the United Bank Building, 3750 Lancaster, 7:30 p.m. I'm going to do my best to be punctual. We're going to show short films by filmmakers of color that were also had historic milestones in the history of film. So we're going to show Darnell Martin. Her first film was I Like It Like That with Rita Moreno, who made an appearance at the Oscars.
Yes, she did, in the same dress that she wore when she won back in 1963.
Good for her.
Yeah.
And a big shout out to Tarana Burke.
Yes.
Who was at the Oscars.
On stage with the Common Andra Day collaboration from the film Marshall that very few people saw.
I thought she was going to sing though. I said, is she going to sing?
No.
Gonna let her sing?
No, but
she
looked fabulous.
They let the other people in the background. The next song, they were all dancing.
But that was a whole other thing. They were kind of singing. They were mostly dancing.
It was some bad choreography. Whoever got that check needs to give it back, because that was some weird. They were just. I could have done that. I could have been dancing on.
Have
that
y'all
stage.
seen Mike dance?
I could have been dancing on that stage.
Facebook Live people. I'm just kind of
put me on the Oscars next year. If they had Oscars out like chitlets, I want like 5 Oscars before I'm done. I'm gonna claim it. I like the guy that stole the Oscar. I proclaim this in the name of Jesus. I want 5 Oscars. But anyway, so we're Darnell Martin. She did a movie at NYU called Suspect.
Okay.
Starring Q-Tip. I helped program it with Lindley Farley at the Public Theater back in the day. I had a VHS. I asked Darnell, "Hey, can I show it?" She's like, "Hey, go ahead, go show it." And then she, so she's credited. She did a movie called I Like It Like That for Columbia Pictures with Rita Moreno, and this is her thesis film. We're going to show that tonight.
Nice.
I'm going to show some early work by Julie Dash, early work by Ava DuVernay, and Ayoka Chinzera, who was on the show. Called into the show. We're going to show one of her pieces called Jezoita and the Boogie Spirit, which is an animation that she did like 15, 20 years ago.
Wow.
About how the rhythms of Africa, it's basically an animation about the Middle Atlantic slave trade, but how the rhythms of Africa transformed into hip-hop music.
Nice.
I think it's a very beautiful movie in light of the Black Panther spirit.
Yeah. Wakanda.
That we're all showing. So that'll
Wakanda forever.
And Leslie Harris, we're gonna eventually show her early work. It's her 25th anniversary of Just Another Girl on IRT. So, predating all of these films, and countless women have made feature films before this, but this is the first time Hollywood has spent this much money to tell a story about a Black girl.
Yeah. Well, this has been, like I say, the past year has been really something when you think about all of the buzz that Beyonce created using some of the imagery inspired by Julie Dash's Daughter of the Dust. And then Daughter of the Dust was selected for preservation, so that countless other generations will now be able to see this film upheld as a classic, and the story that it tells about Geechee Gullah culture and there's so many reasons why it's important for us to have a body of knowledge about these works that have come before, which is why the screenings that you do are so important, and giving our folks here in Philly access to films that they may not have otherwise had a chance to see or know about, because these are the things that we're saying the universe of filmmaking is not all going to be $100 million blockbusters, and that we need to know films on all different levels of production budgets that still tell great stories. Yeah,
and I appreciate it. And big shout out to Usain Palsy, of course, who did Sugarcane Alley, and then was the very first film woman of color director to make Dry White Season with Marlon Brando, the very first studio feature film released by I'm screwing up the words. She's a Black woman who made a movie back in the day. She came from France, and then the studio put it out, and she won the Caesar Award. So she's like, she not only which is the French equivalent of the Oscars. She won for Best First Film. So she's a pioneering spirit in a lot of ways. Usain Palsy. But Dry White Season predates I Like It Like That. So she really is the first black woman to have a film released by Hollywood Studio, directed and released by Hollywood Studio. That's 1989. So you're talking how long? 20.
Right. But just thinking about that, Ava said when all of the buzz came up about Selma that she was, disappointed that we were talking about historic firsts in the 21st century. And so that just goes to show you that if we're talking about first black woman to have her film produced by a major studio in 89, still, that seems like it's such recent history overall. And the fact that we're still we continue to try and climb from there to get the recognition that is deserved.
Kobe Bryant. I mean, I think the door is open right now. I want it to stay open. Yeah. But the key is just like if you have a key to one of them doors, make sure that you put some other people in the credits besides yourself, because that's the currency. Like we talked about before, the Black Panther cast. I mean, their deals are signed. They'll get money off the toys or whatever. But if Disney's making $1 billion, there's still a cap on how much Ryan Coogler is going to get off the movie or whomever. So. It's very important that we reinvest in our own talent and that we seize these opportunities. I mean, you're not necessarily going to blow up that big with, if you have the idea like I'm going to run a newsstand, I'm going to have a candy store, then, you can make a living and you can live forever. Right. I've seen very few newsstands or candy stores go out of business. But if your dream is to be like interplanetary with your stuff, then it's important that people give you those opportunities early so that you can plant those seeds.
And that's why this opening weekend is incredibly important. So if you're doing a fundraiser or you're just doing your family and your tickets, regardless, you need to show up and buy those tickets and be in the seats and support this
film. And tweet those photos, like, tweet pictures you stand in front of those standees or your tickets or, your instant movie reviews. All that social media currency is invaluable. Like it's something it's the one thing that Hollywood cannot control is your tweets and how you express yourself on your social media platform. So the more buzz, the more hashtag, the better. Yeah.
Yeah. We want to take one more phone call before we go into our last commercial break, and that's Sister Shayna. How you doing this afternoon, sis?
Hey, how are you, Stephanie?
Good.
To talk to you. I'm excited that I get to actually call in and not tweet today.
We're always glad to hear from you. I understand that you have already made your plans to go check out A Wrinkle in Time this weekend.
I have. Actually, we already have our tickets for Sunday. We're going on Sunday.
Yes.
But I guess I wanted to go back to the conversation in reference to The Wiz that you were talking about.
Yeah.
Not the movie, but the actual production, because I, too, remember that was my first experience going to the theater as a child. I was about 11 or 12. And I will never forget that. I mean, to this day, I can still see Stephanie Mills on that stage doing her thing.
Yes.
And for me as a child, it definitely sparked so many things in me. But I think, no one in my family, thank goodness for my mom, no slight to her. She knew that it was important to expose me to those things.
Yeah.
But nobody knew how to really tell me how to actualize some of the ideas that I had.
Yeah.
I love the music, and I wanted to be like an audio engineer back in the day, but nobody knew, what path to tell me to go.
Yeah.
So I guess my point really is, when we take our children or whoever you're taking, your godchildren, teachers are taking children, really talk to them to help them understand how they can actualize their ideas.
Right.
And what they can do, and how there's a myriad of things that they can do, not just on screen, because some of them will be fascinated by that, seeing the images and how beautiful we are on the screen, and they'll want to be that, and that's fine. But there are so many other things that they can do behind the scenes that really make an impact. So I just want to encourage us to talk to our children and show them and ask them questions and give them the roadmap that they can take
I love
to be
it.
a part part of these kind of things.
Indeed. Well, we love the fact that you're encouraging that. And there are, before I came to Word, one of the primary things I did was to do workshops in schools and talk to young people about the realities of trying to have a career in the arts, because that means a lot of different things for a lot of different people. I can't draw, so I could not come up with the fabulous costumes that they have for Black Panther, but there are other young people who do, and that is a viable career in the industry. And so exposing them to all the different pathways that they can be, famous folk adjacent, and in the mix of what inspires them when they go to the theater and they check out these films is incredibly important.
That's right, absolutely, because they need to know that. It's important for us to go and support and buy these tickets and support Ava and all of the rest of the folks. But they want to be, and I don't like saying, well, they can be the next Ava DuVernay, because they need to be the next whoever they are.
Exactly.
But they can come right behind her and Ryan Coogler and the rest of them, and create other things on screen as well for our community.
Yes.
If you can see it, you can be it. And I mean, Ryan Coogler, Ava, excellent role models.
Yes.
And what's really great about this Sunday screening that Tatiana Teaspoon and Pound is hosting is that Lonnie Liu is going to be the Q&A moderator with Dr. Pitts. So.
Yeah, indeed.
So
we'll come back and we'll give people all the details about that, because there's still time for them to purchase tickets. But so the Sunday screening is an event that will be more than just seeing the film. There will be conversation around both the science that is involved that they're speaking about in the film, as well as a young television show host who is going to be there asking the questions. And so our young people can be inspired in a number of different ways to support all of this. So we got to take our final commercial break, and we'll come back and fold some of that information into our wrap up for this week's edition of Reelblack Radio.
Into your beautiful form.
That's a little taste of Ice Cream Every Day is the album. Amel LaRue is the artist. The song is called Afraid, and afraid in a good way. Afraid because you are being pushed into a space that might feel a little uncomfortable, but it's good for you at the end of the day, and you got to embrace the nervous energy and turn it into something even more positive. And we hope that so many of our young people, and I got to tell you that one of the other reasons why I'm so excited about A Wrinkle in Time is very much kind of piggybacking off of what Shayna just offered us. Working as a teaching artist with Philadelphia Young Playwrights Festival, and going into classrooms. And these are young folks whose schools have invested in bringing in artists to help them write their own plays. And the ones that are judged to be of highest quality are then presented professionally by professional actors on stage, right? This is something that Philadelphia does well. And our kids, the ones who come from inner city schools, the ones who don't necessarily have rigorous academic programs, don't walk out on the ledge when it comes to creating their stories. They very much rehash things that they've already seen in the films, on television, on YouTube, whatever the case may be, because they think that's the surefire way to get them in a space. They don't necessarily give themselves permission to think outside of the box, to create these larger worlds and these more intricate stories. And so, the more opportunities that we have to expose our children to amazing artistry allows them to elbow themselves some more room to be creative and to tell different stories and to be noticed in that way.
I've had a lot of opportunities the last few months to speak or do the Sundance workshop and stuff. I always tell young filmmakers you're at such a greater advantage than I was at that same age because of technology. Just everything's more affordable. If you can get your hands on a phone, you can make a movie.
That's right.
I make
and shoot in 4K, shoot in the highest HD quality that you can get right now.
And I do my best to exercise my creativity every day, because it's it's repeat. Then you get to the jewel. You start off copying, eventually get to a point where you find your voice. But certainly guidance is needed. And I'm just thinking about the things I did with Opera Company. a lot of kids, they don't stay. The ones that do, they get the best reward. And I think ultimately art is the only way we're going to solve a lot of these problems that we encounter.
Yeah.
Right. So I always get excited. Like I light up when I meet somebody that says like this, I encounter this problem in my community and I'm using my talent to address it. Like if it's like I know people in jail, I want to be a lawyer, or if I know somebody like this, I want to sing this, or whatever. Art does it for me that way. So absolutely encourage people to see movies, but also talk about them, not just like watch them on the device and let them go. But watch Coco, talk about it. Watch Wrinkle in Time, talk about it. Watch Hidden Figures, talk about it. And then if you're in a community where you can really share or support one another, it's even better.
And I'm going to take a moment to embarrass one of my former students because I think he's a perfect example of this. Many people, especially millennials, know him as a hip hop artist, that Bull Bay. But he's one of my former students for the film boot camp that I did in conjunction with College Access back into the summer of 2002. So now I'm dating myself and him. Okay. But when he first came into my classroom, he barely talked. And was, he was always present, but and would, in group conversation or whatever, was very active, but just one-on-one, she was just a shy kid, but had all these ideas. And so in prepping for class each day, I would get there early and write stuff on the whiteboards and, kind of prep stuff. And he started showing up early. And one day I happened to be listening to Fishbone while I'm prepping my class. And I knew he was into rock, but I didn't know so he walks in and he had on his own headphones, so he really wasn't dialed into what I was listening to. He took his headphones off and he was like, "Miss Steffi, you like this?" And I was like, "Yes, very much so." So we started a whole conversation of Black rock. It turned into him coming to the next 3 programs I taught, and eventually leaving Philadelphia and going to LaRose College to major in film studies. Nice. Because of the finding his voice and wanting to learn more about how to do it. And now here he is as a rapper who takes stages all over everywhere and does his thing. And it's just, you never know, parents, guardians, teachers, mentors, how exposure is the first step in opening up a whole new world for our young people and encouraging them to stick with it. That's one of the reasons why I said I share that, because I think it's important. We live in an instant fame society. Right. So if it doesn't come the next day, for some people, they walk away from it and look for the next thing. Yeah. And the process of learning the craft and embracing it is incredibly, incredibly important. And it can still happen for you very young, like the celebrity hairstylist. What is his name? It begins with a V. Vermeer.
Do I look like I know anything about hair?
Sorry, but Vermeer from Philly. He's 20 and is styling folks on Love and hip hop and Basketball Wives and he's 20.
Yes.
And fabulous and has like 1 million followers on Instagram. It can happen. But it's still not, it's never overnight. It's never overnight.
I might have 1 million followers one day. We'll see what happens. I think you have to be 20 to get 1 million followers. Well, shout out to Portia for who's listening and tweeted us out. Okay. Shout out to Chantrell. What is this? Chantrell Lewis, isn't it? It says Chantrell P. Little on this press release. Chantrell, our friend Chantrell, booked a deal with Viola Davis Juvie Productions, adapting Dandelion, the Black Dandian street style, as a docuseries.
Yes, so which is going to be, and for those of you who are completely clueless as to what that means, we're talking about folks on the African continent who spend lots of money to look ultra fabulous, and a lot of them are chauffeurs and in other service positions, but they are carrying on a tradition. They are basically like, your opportunities correspond with how much investment you are willing to put into yourself in order to look extraordinary in very ordinary circumstances.
Right.
It is something to see. And now it's going to be a docuseries,
Yes.
which is produced by Viola Davis.
We'll discuss this more, but Array acquires Jewel Catch 1, the documentary on the oldest black-owned disco club, which provided a safe space for LGBTQ community. So May 1st, that'll be coming to Netflix.
Nice.
Also, Netflix is working out a deal. Now, I'd love to be on negotiations with Barack and Michelle coming to Netflix.
Yes.
They're going to be producing movies for Netflix, so that's another reason to keep
and Mr. Obama may have his own talk series. They really liked the piece that he did with David Letterman. And so now this is spiraling out into where he might host his own show.
More money. No, I'm not mad at Barack and Michelle.
No.
And David Oyelowo has a new movie out today called Gringo.
Yeah.
Well, it's out. I have to tell people now.
I was going to say, I've seen the trailer. I'm less than enthused about
Not sure how that happened, but Amazon Studios financed it. And then big shout out, the Bobby Brown story is coming to BET with a whole bunch of great people.
And the same guy that played him in the New Edition story is playing him in his story, right?
Well, my NYU buddy, Keel, Adrian Scott is directing, so I'm seeing it all over the Instagram. They started filming earlier this week, and I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's the same producers as New Edition.
So again, Sunday is when Teaspoon and Pound, BlackSci-Fi.com, and West Philadelphia Financial Services Institution, Reelblack is supporting. That's when the screening of A Wrinkle in Time, along with the conversation with Dr. Derek Pitts, is happening. You can go to Eventbrite, search for A Wrinkle in Time, buy your tickets, and we hope to see you there. And that's it.
Oh, happy day.
The Shamari Show is up next. Stay tuned for more great news and information here on Word Radio. Peace.
Give you quality and make you keep coming back. Whether you're large or you're independent, Reelblack, the Philly film establishment. Quiet, speeding, rolling, action. Making movies in Philly the main attraction. Cut, no, this to end for me. But if I don't see you later, then I see you in the movies.